In 1914, not long after the sinking of the Titanic, Congress convened a hearing to discern what happened in another nautical tragedy. In January of that year, in thick fog off the coast of Virginia, the steamship Monroe was rammed by the merchant vessel Nantucket and eventually sank. 41 sailors lost their lives in the frigid winter waters of the Atlantic. While it was Osmond Berry, captain of the Nantucket, who was eventually arraigned on charges, in the course of the trial, Captain Edward Johnson was grilled on the stand for over 5 hours. During cross-examination, it was learned, as the New York Times eventually reported, that Captain Johnson navigated the Monroe with a steering compass that deviated as much as 2 degrees from the standard magnetic compass. He said the instrument was sufficiently true to run the ship, and that it was the custom of masters in coast-wide trade to use such compasses. His steering compass had never been adjusted in the 1 year he was the master of the Monroe. The faulty compass that seemed adequate for navigation, it eventually proved otherwise. This realization partly explains the heart-rending picture recorded by the New York Times. It said this: "Later, the two captains met. They clasped hands and they sobbed on each other's shoulders." The sobs of these two burly sailors are a moving reminder of the tragic consequences of misorientation. There are indeed tragic consequences to misorientation. Similar to the compasses of these ships, our hearts serve as the compass to our lives. In the digital age, these compasses, they're more vulnerable to misorientation than they've ever been. We've seen this not only in ourselves, but also in the lives of our students. For example, a recent study conducted by Barna revealed the following statistics regarding Gen Z. First, only 31% of students feel satisfied with their life. Only 33% of students are satisfied with their relationships. 60% of Gen Z report that they feel chronically tired. 82% of Gen Z report experiencing at least one traumatic event defined as the following, leaving them with a sense of helplessness, terror, or distress lasting more than a few weeks. Recent research from Common Sense Media found that the average 13 to 18-year-old spends 7.5 hours per day on their phones. I think it's safe to say that digital disorientation is a defining characteristic of Gen Z. One pastor summarizes it this way. He says, "We are trapped in the lie that mass appeal equals maturity, influence equals integrity, and charisma equals character." The issue is that our students are digital natives. Many of us are digital immigrants. And so the very ones who are the most equipped to lead them in the way are least fluent in the language. What follows are a series of videos to develop digital fluency in order that we may better disciple our kids. The following won't necessarily show you the whole picture. The data is still coming in, and the whole story is yet to be told. Additionally, there are other books out there that will take you deeper, and eventually I'll point you to them. But the hope is that this will give you a surface glance at different trends and perspectives of what we have seen so far in the lives of Gen Z. At the end of each of these videos, I'll offer a brief takeaway, maybe a suggested action point or something for further consideration or a conversation you might want to have. Here's the first. With your students, make mental health a discussable topic. Maybe even use the data from this video as an excuse to bring up the conversation with your kids. Kara Powell, she's the executive director of the Fuller Youth Institute. She recommends beginning to form a nighttime ritual or routine that includes asking your kids 2 things. Number 1, how are you doing? And number 2, how are your friends doing? Pretty simple. These questions can begin the process of then making inroads into the digital lives of our students.